Hello and welcome to this episode of Todd's Pod. Today is my daughter Shannon is here and she's going to interview me, so we can talk a little bit about my recovery story. So people ask me about me, so here we go. Hi Shannon.
Hi, Dad.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Shannon Herbert. I am my father's youngest. I am the baby girl. I'm happy to have my dad let me do the interview. So, how's your day been so far?
It's been interesting. I woke up at 3:30, got on the road at 4:15 because in my recovery I've learned that you got to add space in case if something goes wrong. You want to be on time, and so I pulled into Corpus Christi at 6:30. Thought, well, I'll go pull up to her house at 6:30. I thought, well, no, I'll be nice and let her sleep a little bit. So I went to a meeting, and I say that because it was kind of interesting because I say that every meeting you go to, there's always something that you can take with you when you leave. And so I sit in meetings and I kind of watch for that, see what it was. And a guy said something that kind of struck with me. He said that he trusted in himself and believed in God. And it wasn't until he trusted in God and believed in himself that he was able to remain sober. So I thought, that's pretty cool. I like that. So I'll be using that down the road. And then I came here. So that's kind of my day so far.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Who I am.
Who you are.
Well, I'm Todd Mitchell. I don't believe that I was always Todd Mitchell because of my addiction and my alcoholism and the mental health things that I suffered from. But I believe that people that are in their addiction, they're never their true selves. We have to emulate what we think the world, or I, speaking from an I standpoint, I had to emulate what I thought the world wanted me to be ever since I was born. I went through a lot of challenges as a child, a lot of abuses, and so at 9 years old, my father made whiskey or alcohol in the basement of our place in Alaska. So that was the first time I tasted alcohol at 9, and I found that it didn't fix things, but it made it a little easier for me, I guess. It wasn't an aha moment. You have people say, well, I took my first drink and I knew. Well, I didn't know. I just know that it made me feel a little better than I felt.
It allowed you that escape.
I believe so, yes. And then if we fast forward, I smoked my first joint when I was 12. Yeah. Yeah.
My youngest is 12, so that's kind of like a
scary thing, right?
Yes.
Well, so but that was my aha moment. That was the moment that I thought the world changed for me. Not only was I in a different headspace, but I had a friend that I thought would be a true friend, right? But that quickly evolved. I went straight from smoking a little bit of weed to smoking a lot of weed. Then I found speed in the form of pills. And in order to, my habit got enough that I had to sell pills in high school to support my habit.
So what age did you find speed at? Like, when
Probably
did that?
13.
So
it was a very fast
quick.
progression. Yes,
Okay.
It was very fast. And then from there, of course, that was when I started drinking more heavily. And as I drank heavily, I found myself knowing that I had escaped. I was safe, you might say. It just made me feel different. And I didn't want to be me. So I emulated what I thought high school wanted me to be, which was, I call myself hippie cowboy because not only did I raise a drug fund, but I rode bulls and I raised pigs in high school. So kind of a mixed bag of everything, but it's interesting the bull riding because that's the one time in the world that I truly felt in control was when I was in the back of the bull. Can't really explain that, but yes, it definitely did something to me. Then the first time I did cocaine, I was 14 in an elevator in Memphis, Tennessee. Yes, I had left home. I was selling magazines door to door.
So at 14, you completely left home?
The first time, yes. I'd ran away many times in the past, but yeah, the first time I actually left was at that age, and I traveled throughout the country selling magazines door to door, and so I ended up doing cocaine in Memphis, Tennessee, which that opened up a whole new world that I felt. There again, emulating what I thought it was to be a man, and of course through a very rose-colored glasses and a mixed lens. But that progressed on. I mean, I don't want to spend all this time about my addictions because that kind of gives you an idea of where it started.
Right.
I don't use my childhood as an excuse for my addiction. It just kind of is an explanation of why.
Right.
But I truly made myself into an addict alcoholic over the years.
I think a lot of, being the one who kind of sits back and sees, I think, my opinion is, I think addiction is a cover up for something deeper.
Yes, they say we learn in our addiction and in the rooms of AA, NACA, whatever A you choose. They're all very successful, I believe. But what we learned is that the drugs and the alcohol are just a symptom of a deeper problem. And if you don't find the deeper problem, it's very difficult. You have people that can white knuckle sobriety, and they're not real happy, I don't think. But yes, definitely there are mental health issues, I think, that contributed to mine, and I didn't understand what they were, right? And so, I went through all these series of addictions. I've been addicted to everything there is, right? And I believe very strongly in God. God's always been with me. I got baptized at 9 years old because I found out that I might not be a child of God, and I knew my father would kill me. That gives you an idea of how in depth that was. So all through these addictions, I quit cocaine in one day. Okay, so I'm not a drug addict. Right? Well, it was crank first. It was a real heavy addiction with crank.
Yeah.
Quit in a day, go to cocaine, and then I quit cocaine in a day, and so I again am not an alcoholic or a drug addict. I quickly turned to weed, whiskey, and hallucinogenics, a lot of them. And so that's when I met my first wife, your mother. And I think she understood me in a way, but that was during that time that I had her. I really didn't get deep into other drugs, but it was alcohol. She knew that alcohol was a big problem for me, and a lot of weed, and when I could slip it in those hallucinogenics. Well, when alcohol got out of control, I was able to quit that again in a day, but I quickly got reconnected back into cocaine. That progressed to cocaine, to crack, and anyway, I never used to tell people, but when the planes hit the towers on 9/11, I was actually in a CDA motel in Southern Alabama smoking a crack pipe at the moment I saw those planes hit. And did you know I had no emotional attachment to the death? All those deaths didn't faze me at all. It wasn't until I got sober looking back and like, oh man, that was a lot. But so I did that, I quit that, and when I quit that, I went to opiates. And I tell everybody that God got me hooked on heroin on purpose because I was the guy that walked around being an asshole saying, I can quit in a day, why can't you? I did it in a day, why can't you? Never quitting anything, right? But I was that guy. And when you get addicted to heroin, it's a different addiction. It's not something, I don't care what you have in this hand, you're not quitting that in a day. And so I learned what addiction was. And I knew that, looking back, I know that I had to learn what it was in order to do what I do today.
So I have a question.
Okay.
What was that moment that you wanted to find out who Todd was?
So when I got sober, so up to the sobriety thing, I got off that. I got medically detoxed off heroin, got on that. But then on February 14th, 2000, well, let's backtrack. On January 25th, 2018, I had decided that my kids were grown up. My wife wanted a divorce. My life was in shambles. I'd lost my business, everything. I mean, it was just, my life was to me over, and I had done everything that I thought God wanted me to do. I had multiplied and raised these children as best that I could. So I attempted suicide. But I couldn't do suicide because I knew that was a sin. But hey, I could have OD, and that might be okay. So I did enough heroin and enough probably to kill 10 people. And a friend of mine heard me fall. The ambulance came and they gave me Norcams and brought me back. The police arrested me for possession because all my stuff was laid out there. And I remember the officer looking in his mirror and he was like asking me if I'm feeling okay or if I'm going into withdrawals. I said, well, I'm not going to go into withdrawals because I haven't been addicted to heroin in 3 years. And he was kind of a smart little guy, and he looked back again and asked me again. And so about the third time he asked me that question, I told him, I said, look, I told you, I'm not addicted to heroin right now. I'm not going to go into withdrawals. You need to get me to jail, give me books so I can get out, so I can finish what I started. San Antonio Police Department is a fantastic place. A lot of fantastic guys that really do a good job. Of course, every police department has their bad apples, no doubt. But for the most part, San Antonio Police, their head of police, chief of police, they're all very compassionate people. And he took a right instead of a left. Left would have taken me to county jail. The right took me to a place called Laurel Ridge. I spent a week in Laurel Ridge. Interestingly enough, they did my blood like 3 times when I got there, and the doctor called me into his office, and he said I was going to die, and I was going to die soon because I had problems with my kidneys, liver, heart, lungs. I was messed up, and I was that decayed. And but he said that they could give me some prescriptions that would allow me to live a little longer, right? And so I laid in my bed that night, and I prayed for God to let the Holy Spirit be within me, and to lay the Holy Spirit on me, and to tell my brain how to fix my body. And I did this for 3 nights, all night till I fell asleep. And so anyway, I knew what to say to get out of there, so I did all that. And so the doctor calls me in his office, I don't know, 5 or 6 days later, and he said, okay, I like your plan. I'm going to go ahead and sign you out of here. I'm like, okay, cool, I can get this job done. Anyway, so he signed the
So
paperwork.
you were lying to him and lying to yourself at the same time.
Well, yeah, the interesting thing is that when he signed that paperwork, he turned to get up, and I said, wait a minute, Doc, hold on. And he said, what? I said, well, you told me that I needed this continued medication to make me live longer. Well, here I'm suicidal, but I don't have medication to make me live longer. Okay, that's the addicted mind.
Yeah.
Well, and he sat down and he said, we took your blood a few times today. And I said, yeah. He said, well, none of those problems are there. You're good to go. And I'm like, what? He said, yeah, everyth's fine. Everything came up normal. And I owe that, I believe, to God. I believe that there's been many miracles in my life that God has done that have carried me. You've seen a few of them.
Yes.
You've seen the results of some of them, and there's no explanation why I'm still alive. So anyway, so I get out of Laurel Ridge, and a buddy of mine picks me up in the parking lot. We hit some meth, and off I go. And I'm determined that I'm going to finish what I started, but I got to do it a different way, and I can't know about it. So about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I'm up in Comal County, up by Canyon Lake, and Comal County Sheriff's Department pulled me over, and they're great officers themselves too. I believe that law enforcement owe my life to. Of course, I owe it to God, my recovery, and all the things that I've done. But if those men didn't do their job, if they just looked at me and said, "Oh, he's just another drug addict, don't mess with him,"
Right.
if they did that, I would probably be dead. Okay.
I agree with that 100. And
Right. And I hate to see officers that get discouraged and say, "Oh, there's no hope," because there is. And these guys took me to jail, and I got moved to Bear County. And when I got to Bear County, well, even in Comal County, my kids would call and put money on my phone, and I would cuss them out because they couldn't get me out of jail. And it's so simple. It's like, get a letter from Laurel Ridge.
we weren't gonna get you out of jail.
You finish, take it to Bear County, show them, and then they'll release this bond thing on me, and I can get out, right? And so,
Because not even 2 weeks prior, I got you out of jail.
right. And so, the thing is that,
So I made you live by what
I
you
did
always
this.
told me.
And I remember one of my sons said, "Dad, are you going to be cussing us out all the time we put money on your books? Are we just going to cuss us out, or are we going to have a conversation?" I'm like, "Well, you stupid," and I cussed him out. And I got off the phone, and this old guy behind me, he said, "Man," he said, "The kids aren't going to get out of jail." And I said, "Why? They're just stupid like that?" He said, "No." He said, "You've told me that you're going to kill yourself when you get out of jail." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, they know that. You're in the safest place you can be." And I'm like, "Well, that's like a light switch on. Oh, man, they're not going to get me out of jail." But in turn, I stopped cussing my kids out, and I got moved to Bear County, and my daughter told me that the day I got out to call her, and I didn't. It was the next morning when I called her, but I hadn't used any drugs at that point. So she came and picked me up because she told me that they were having a barbecue at her house. Anybody that's been incarcerated for any length of time, especially in Bear County, if somebody says barbecue,
You're going.
I'm on.
You're going.
Yeah, so I guess a friend of hers that she met while I was in jail.
Well, it was a friend of Eddie's.
Right.
Like it was
Just
a
the same,
mutual.
right?
Yes.
And so had told her what to do, and she did, and I got out there, and So this guy comes strumming up to me, he's got a beard, and I'm thinking, this wild guy wants to meet me and talk to me, and so his name was Caleb Black. I can throw his name out there, he's told me I could, so Caleb, there you go. Anyway, but he asked me about my addiction and my alcoholism, which I'm okay with. I can say that. I know I'm an addict alcoholic, no doubt. I'm good with that, right? Then he asked me about mental health. And I'm like, no, I'm a grown-ass man. I'm responsible for what I do. And he kind of chuckled and he said, well, I beg to differ. And I said, oh, yeah? He said, well, your daughter told me you tried to commit suicide a while back. And I said, yeah, I'm a grown-ass man. I knew exactly what I was doing. He laughed again. He said, well, I beg to differ, man. If you knew what you were doing, you wouldn't be here. And I'm like, and I laughed myself. I'm like, okay, you got a point. So maybe I'm a little mental. But what that did was that small amount of admitting allowed me to agree to be evaluated for my mental health. And I didn't know he was building me into this thing, right? And we talked about recovery and maybe treatment. And I'm like, I'm all on board because my daughter's there. And I'm like, but what else am I going to do, right? And he said, okay, great. We'll go at 7. I leave at 6:30, I think it was in the morning, and I'll take you. I work there. And I'm like, hold up.
Pump those brakes.
Like all alcoholics. I said, no. I said, well, that's a little too fast. And Shannon's like, well, I'll bring him up there. I said, okay, I'll be there at 10 o'clock. He said, okay, great. Just ask for me and I'll help you. Well, so my daughter took me up there and probably.
But before I took you up there, because you were hesitant,
okay.
What was the one piece of advice that I told you?
I was getting to that.
Okay, because that's.
I'm getting to that. So my daughter knows that I don't break promises to her. If I don't keep it, I won't make it. So in all her glory, she said, Dad, make me a promise. And I said, okay, what's that? She promised me you'll be honest. And I was still kind of fast in the day. I'm like, yeah, I can do that, man, because I can be honest with you. I can be honest with y'all. I can be honest with everybody, right? And she looked me dead in the eye and she said, no, Dad, with yourself. And I'm like, but I made that promise. Probably the best decision I ever made because nobody knew about the sexual abuse I went through as a child. All my abusers were dead, so I didn't have to say anything. And that would have stayed inside of me. And I believe if we leave anything on the inside, it will eat us up and we will use again. So anyway, yeah, so yes, that's what happened on the way to rehab. My daughter has dogs, by the way. But anyway, so I got there and they evaluated me, and it would be 3 days later that I actually got in there. And my daughter wanted me to stay with her, and I ended up staying with a friend of mine. And I guess my daughter was real afraid that I was going to use him. I would sit on his couch and I need to go up and check on my friends and see what they're up to. I ain't going to use, but I'm going to see what they're up to, right? And so I'd go for the door, and when I opened the front door, he'd be standing there. He's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to go to the store." He said, "Oh, I got to go too." And we went to the store. He did that for 3 days. I don't know how many times I went to that door and how he knew I was going to that door, but he knew he was there. And thank God for that.
Yeah.
So I got into ITP, which is a treatment program at a campus that is here in San Antonio. And I went in, and I remember a guy that gave me boat shoes. And I'm like, I liked them. And he just gave them to me. And I couldn't figure out what he wanted for them. Well, no, I didn't have any. I don't have money. I got nothing. He said, "Oh, I don't want nothing." Looks like they'll finish. And they did. So people were giving me things, and they weren't wanting anything in return. And I really hadn't experienced that. And then I would go to my first sober meeting. I say sober meeting because I'd been to meetings before because my wife wanted me to go. All the while I was drunk and high in those meetings, and I went for like a couple months, and I told him one day, I decided to share. I said, "Heck, I think I'll give these 10 steps a try." And this old Tom called me and he said, "Man," he pointed at the sign and said, "There's 12 steps. We read it every day if you ever listen to what we're saying." And I said, "Oh, yeah." So I left, and didn't go back there. I do now, but not then. So anyway, a guy was there, and he was talking, he was chairing the meeting. It was the Road to Happy Destiny, which is a very good group in San Antonio. His name was Rick Green. All these names I can use because they told me I could, right? So anyway, so Rick was talking about how he had 7 years sobriety in life would be good and it would get great and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, one, sobriety's not a real thing. I don't believe in it. I don't believe anybody in the world is sober. That's what I thought at the time. So I sat there and listened to him and raised my hand, called on me, and I said, "Man," I said, "you're full of shit." I said, "There's no such thing as sobriety." I said, "You're going to go home and kick your feet up and have a beer and laugh about all this stuff you're telling us." And he just looked at me and said, "Keep coming back." And I'm like, this guy's weird, right? So anyway, I did. I was in treatment, so I kind of had to. yeah, that's kind of where I got to treatment. Still, my kids wouldn't really talk to me. You know, they kind of did, but not really. My wife read my divorce papers and I went into ITP. My life was still in shambles. I didn't know what I was doing. And I truly didn't believe, I couldn't see a life outside of drugs and alcohol. I didn't like consciously think, oh, I gotta get high every day of my life. It's just I didn't see a lifestyle for me outside of it because I'd been high my entire life.
So what was that moment that you saw the lifestyle outside?
Well, I mean, I saw a lot of people that were living the things that they were teaching us. So it kind of started affecting me. So I have a really good sponsor, and he told me that I didn't have to believe it was possible. I just had to stay. Yeah. He said, no matter what. And so I came up with a tool that I could leave whenever I want to because I'm hard-headed like that, right? And say I wanted to leave right now at this moment, it's 10:21, and I can leave, but I can't leave till tomorrow at 10:21. And in the meantime, I have to pray for God to put something in my path to make me stay. And it worked. He always did. And it was that there was a day. I remember we were going to meditation, and all the guys were walking, and somebody had a Bluetooth on with that song, Play the Funky Music, and I was dancing. And I don't dance, for one, especially not sober. And I was happy. And that's when it occurred that something was happening. Okay. And, then the next day, I had a really bad day. Bad morning, woke up bad. And I just prayed to God to give me one of those little miracles, help me stay, right? And a pigeon and a little bird flew up in front of me, and the sun was right there, and they flew up, and I could see a big cross and a little cross, and it's like I heard this little whisper, what about these? And I'm like, huh, interesting, okay, cool, thank you, God. So I am very spiritual, a huge God guy. The third step is one where we turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him, right? And I do that every day, and if I don't, I'm not in a good place, because my will's not good, it's still not good. But God's will is. Anyway, so I go through that, and things are starting to change. I don't realize just how much they were changing. At that point, it was about, I don't know, a month and something like that. I was sitting out in the courtyard thing out of ITP one day, and I saw my sons walking up, and they had 2 HEB bags in their hand, and I was like, oh my God. So I had cigarettes, I had snacks, I was hooked up, as they say.
Yeah.
But it was really good to see them, and they were happy to see me, and I came to understand that I can't expect people to actually believe that this was going to work for me, because I didn't believe it, right? I didn't know how long this would last. I was one of the ones betting against me being sober. So anyway, fast forward, my sponsor was great. He gave me tools, and he told me I didn't have to believe in it. And I was at a meeting, and it was time for me to read How It Works, is something they read in the beginning of every meeting. And I couldn't get past the second step, which is came to believe that God could restore us to sanity, right? And when I read it, I changed the word could to would. And when I heard people read it, I didn't hear could, I heard would. My sponsor caught that after the meeting. He said, dude, said to me. I read it. He said, dude, that doesn't say would. It says could. And he said, do you believe that he could? And I'm like, well, I know he can. He could if he would, but dude, he ain't going to because I've asked him to 1,000,000 times, so he won't. He said, it doesn't say that. It says, could he? And so I was able to get past that second step. My sponsor was real good about walking me through all those steps and helping me there. But then I got from the inpatient treatment, I made the choice to, instead of try to go home, because I don't think it was time for that yet, they have a program called Pay It Forward, which is a sober living community. It was called Next Right Step then, and my choice was to go there. So I remember the interview and nervous, thinking I'm not going to get in there. I'm still have that I'm not good enough thing, because that's part of the mental health issues, right? And I had already been diagnosed with 7 different diagnoses. Batshit crazy, right? Anyway, so I still had that belief that I wasn't good enough, and so I got in there, and I continued to work on mental health. And the first doctor that I saw gave me medication that I didn't like. Go figure, drug addict don't like medication, right? And I got in an argument with her, so I got a second doctor, and she also did the same thing. And I got in an argument with her, and she stuck her finger in my face, and she said, "That's bipolar." And I said, "No, man, that's me. Put stop." And I got a third doctor, and the third doctor he showed me this graph, and he said, "Are all those diagnoses on this graph?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're all there." He said, "Okay," and he flipped it, and it was PTSD. And he said, "What does that line right there say?" And it said that if I had more than 4 of those diagnoses, I had complex PTSD. So I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. And he explained to me that doctors can give me medication for all 7 symptoms for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
They'll never get better. So, but if I work on that PTSD, which there's no medication for, it takes serious work and serious counseling. That I might find that some of these other symptoms alleviate themselves. It took me 3.5 years of going to counseling every week to deal with PTSD, and at the end of it, all this busyness in my head was gone. I had clarity, which is all I ever really wanted. And from the very first time I took a drink, it was about clarity. Right. So I discovered this along the way, but I was still in the Next Right Step Pay It Forward program. My recovery coach at Pay It Forward, one of them came over one day and she slapped these papers down in front of me and she's like, I'm like, what is that? She said, it's the application to be a child host. I want you to fill it out. And her name is Angie Black now. It used to be Angie Button. So her and Kate were married. It's kind of a side thing there. But anyway, so she laid it on there and I told her I would. I'd fill it out and she laughed. And I went on about my business. Of course, I didn't fill it out because to me, chapel host is way outside of my wheelhouse. And I do not like people at this point. I don't want nothing to do with people. Let me be me. Okay? I'll do me, you do you, right? That kind of thing. Well, I don't know, maybe a few days, a week later, she come back and she slapped papers in front of me. She said, fill it out. And I said, what is it? She said, it's application for chapel host. I'm like, okay, I'll fill it out. And she sat down and she said, no, you do it right now. And so I did. Well, what I discovered was she had seen something in me that I did not see in myself. And that's what I find in recovery is we can see things in people that are new in recovery that they cannot see, cannot believe possible themselves. So I became a chapel host and I enjoyed it. And I found that maybe I did like people, you know, and I found that people like talking to me and I liked that. And so at that point, I made a decision that I liked it so much that I was going to spend the rest of my life talking about recovery and helping people. And it wasn't easy. I had a lot of people telling me that everybody when they get sober says that. And I can understand now because everybody when they get sober says that. But it was like they were trying to discourage me and try to make me go back into the career path that I had before, which was a 32-year-long career, saying that I could make.
That was a shocker to me.
Yeah.
Out of everything that you were changing about yourself and who you were becoming, the shocker was you did not go back to your career path.
Well, I couldn't. I'm an addict to the truest sense, which means that.
And I didn't understand that at that time, so I'm like, Dad, why?
A lot of people felt that way. They're like, yeah, you have the ability to make a lot of money. What are you doing? And it's like I tried to explain to people, I'm an addict in the truest sense. I'm addicted to work. I'm addicted to anything you put in front of me that I can get addicted to it. So I'm very careful along those lines. Well, I knew that part of my addiction was the career, you know, and I knew that I didn't need to be so wrapped up in something that I was so deeply wrapped up in my career that I forgot about everything else except the addiction, right? So I knew I couldn't do that ever again. So I went to work at a place and started in a place and I was helping people to some degree, but not to the degree that I really wanted to. And then I got involved in another job at the same place. And interestingly enough, I applied twice. I didn't get it the first time, but I got it the second time. And that Caleb Black was my manager. And I'm so grateful that he was because he taught me a lot. I've looked up to him. I still look up to him because I still watch him because I wanted to be like Caleb.
Yeah.
Seeing him walk around and do what he did and everything, I wanted what he had, right? And so I had the opportunity there to glean even more of the benefits of Caleb. And I remember I would come in and he'd be at his desk and his Bible's open. You know, that's a habit that I gained from him. You know, I read my recovery stuff every day, but the Bible part of it, I don't know if he knows that he influenced me in such a way. I mean, I've always had a relationship with God, but it was him that I saw. Cool guy. You know, cool guy. Got along with everybody, you know, and he's a cool guy, but yet he's still humble.
Yes.
In who he is. So I've been very fortunate in the choices that I've made. I don't take my recovery lightly, but I believe everybody has the ability to recover from whatever they suffer from. I'm not just an addict. There's people that have addictions to cursing, anger addictions, media, you know, all kinds of addictions that aren't outside the realm, but their addiction's just the same.
So you just said that you believe that everyone has the ability to recover,
Yes,
but everyone recovers in a different time frame, in a different like life settings and things like that.
that is correct.
I guess my question would be, how can I say this?
Spit it out.
I'm trying. Um, you know, you see teenagers who can recover from their addiction, and then, it took, I'm 38, and I just met my dad for the first time 7 years ago. So, if someone is struggling and they're late in their life and they've always been an addict, what advice could you give that person that says, this is my life, this is who I am, I'm never going to be able to achieve that because I'm this far?
Interesting question. So just by chance, I happen to actually that's part of what I do. I actually talk to individuals that are deep in their addictions and their mental health, and I have a way of talking to them that I explain to them like it was explained to me. You don't have to believe there's a different life. You just have to try. Just have to try. And I'm not asking, and I tell people, I'm not asking you to believe that you can get better. I just need you to try and stay. That's the important thing. I tell people, I can't see you, I can't help you. You burn off, I have no way to find you. But if you stay, something will change. It may not change completely, but it'll get better. I've had people that I've interacted with 5 times, and they've not been successful, but that 5th time, you can see it. You know there's something different about this time. And so I never say no. I'm always the one that says, okay, let's do this again. And this time might be different. I don't believe in relapse. I don't think people relapse. I don't think they ever quit. You might have people that have 10 years sobriety and they relapse and they're doctor, you never really quit. There was something there, something missing. And I believe that missing piece in a lot of people is their mental health. And I can speak life to that because I've experienced it, right? And so you would be surprised at how many people that I talk to that have addiction, alcoholism issues, and when I dig deeper, find that they are willing to admit, like I was, that maybe there's a little bit of mental there. And that opens the door for them to discover a whole new world, to get a better understanding of themselves. Because they don't have to believe. So what I like to do is I like to put hope into people, that just maybe, because Caleb likes to put hope into me. I keep telling him that, but he breathed. He gave me hope that my daughter would be off my back, or that this, that, or the other thing. Did he give me hope that I would be sober the rest of my life? I didn't believe it, but he did give me some hope that allowed me the ability to allow myself to be sober. And so in saying so, when we become sober, the way I look at it, I was an empty shell going in. And when I got sober, I was an empty shell. I was able to build the man that I thought I should be. Instead of acting like the man I should be, I internalized these traits. I guarantee you, if I tell you I'll be there at 8, I'll probably be there at 10 till. Unless something bad happens or something stops me. But you can
Well, you're definitely not going to run out of gas anymore.
No. I used to
all the time,
but I don't anymore. But the thing is that if I tell you something, you can count on it, and I stand true to that because I want people to be able to count on me and depend on me, like there were people that I could count on and I could depend on. It's important for me to be true to myself and to work.
But you still have the people on, that you count on, the ones that you go to. Because you have 7 years underneath you and you've come to the conclusion that it's just not an addiction, it was also mental, like you still have your support behind you, like
you have to.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that's because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm 7 years in, I don't need a sponsor, I don't need the meetings, I don't need this, but you are religiously going. You have your support, and you've always kept that support team with you. And I think that's amazing.
I'm
Like,
very selfish. So, I say that in the loosest
in a good
term,
way,
I
yes.
suppose, because one thing I did early in recovery was I would go around and ask everybody in ITP what they were grateful for in the mornings, right? And I guess they thought I was trying to spread joy and happiness in the dorm, but I really wasn't. I was told I had to have a grateful list, and I had no freaking idea what to be grateful for. I couldn't think of those things, right? So if I ask everybody, I heard
You
all
just
these
put their
things.
grateful things down.
No, I heard all these things, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can be grateful for that. Oh yeah, I can be grateful for that. There's one case in particular, a friend of mine, his brother was coming into ITP, and he said, hey man, my brother's coming to watch out for me. He's been incarcerated and stuff, and help him. I said, oh, I will, And so I went up to him one day, and one morning when he first got there, I said, hey man, what are you grateful for? And he grabbed me, and kind of, and I didn't take that, I didn't let that bother me. I was still that happy, go like, okay, and I move on to the next guy. And if they said something good, if they didn't, I didn't press them on it. I just moved on. And the third day, the second day he kind of cussed me a little bit. The third day, he got up and he stood right up, and he's taller than I am. And he kind of looked at me and said, he said, if you come and ask me that one more day, I'm going to stomp you in the mud because you know I've been in prison. You know I can do it. And I'm like, okay, good. And I went on to the next guy. And so the fourth day I went up to him and I asked him the same question. I said, what are you grateful for? And he just kind of looked at me and said, you're going to keep asking me that, aren't you? I said, yeah. I said, great. I moved on to the next guy. Well, fast forward out of recovery, he would post these huge, long gratitude lists. I call him my gratitude, my grateful beast, because he does that. He doesn't do it as much, but the thing is, my point is recovery changes. Okay, we change in our recovery, and so yes, I am very, very active in my recovery, and yes, most people have the difficulty when they get a month sober, 2 months sober. They're like, "Oh, I got this," and you try to tell them, "Okay, well, cool the jets a little bit." And some people listen, some people don't. And they go back out, and I only pray that I get to see them again because a lot of people die, and that's something that really hurts me. But if I could, I'd save the world, but I can't. So I say it's selfish in some ways because it is my recovery. And I have to do what I do because if I don't, if I think one day, if I wake up one day and say, Todd, you've got this, man, you have arrived, I'm in a very dangerous place.
Yes, and I'm grateful. I am grateful that you wake up every day looking for the best in people, looking for where you can listen and I'm not really guide them, but show them that there is a path that you can take, and that so I would always say sober is awesome. Like being in life in that moment is great. And I would always tell you that, like, Dad, you don't understand, like, it's good. And you're like, meh, I don't know. And I'm like, I mean, you have your hard days. We all have hard days, but it's just that day. You'll get over it. You'll move past it. So I just think it's great the path that you have you've taken, and what you are doing today. Like every time I get that phone call and you're excited, baby girl, guess what? I got this certification, or I can do this now, or my path is taking me this way, or even sometimes you have your days where you call me and you're like, I'm torn between two paths and I don't know which way to go. And my advice is always, you know which way to go. You just are hesitant to go down the one that scares you the most.
Ooh, I disagree a little bit with that because I love going down the one that scares me the most.
Really?
I think that's, well, so in recovery, or in life in general, I guess, if you stay in your comfort zone, you get comfortable.
So yes,
And I like to get
but
out
you've always taken the path that scares you since you've been on this path. It's you've never chosen, oh, I'm going to go this way because it's comfortable. You've always chosen the uncomfortableness, the one that makes you go, oh, I can fail, but I can also succeed.
Yes, I guess. Yeah, I suppose. But the thing, what it is, it's not that it scares me. Okay, fear is a big driver. Okay, and everything revolves, I think, around fear. I think that fear is one of the biggest problems in recovery. It's all around fear. So, for instance, I decided to get my driver's license. I hadn't had one for over 25 years, right? And not because they were suspended or anything, I just didn't do it. And I didn't understand why I didn't do it. Along with when my kids were little, if they got a cut, it was duct tape or electrical tape. If it took more than that, I was angry because I'd have to take it to the hospital. I wouldn't go into courthouses because what it was, I didn't know at the time, but I do now. I thought I was a badass rebel. You know, I don't want to go in the court, you can cuff me, right? Well, no, I was scared because it was beat into me that anything official would destroy my family as a very young child. And I didn't know that was still in my head until I got sober and started working on my mental health and I started to understand that. I went to the Perry County Court because I had a few warrants there. I had to straighten up to get my license. And the judge, she said, Mr. Mitchell, how many warrants do you have in Perry County? I said, I don't know, 2, 3. She said, so you have 13. She said, and most all of them are failure to appear. And that's why, because I was afraid to go to the courthouse. I knew that they had a place in the basement for me and no one would let me out and destroy my family. But I was able to tell her, she asked me how I pled. I said, well, I don't remember it, so I'm going to plead guilty. And she said, what do you mean you don't remember? So I was able to tell her what it was like, what happened, and what I'm doing now. And she told me that she was going to drop all those warrants. I had to pay $5 when I left under one condition. And I'm like, okay, what's the condition? Well, the condition was I had to leave there and I had to go to the magistrate, which is the city court, and turn myself in. And so I had come to grips. I had already come to grips that I was probably going to go to jail. And I had already dealt with that. I had already decided, okay, if this happens, it's okay because there's somebody in there that God wants me to talk to. That's the only reason I'm going to go in there.
Yeah.
And so I go to the room, and they weren't as nice, I should say. They didn't put me in jail, but I remember sitting down, and I got up to go to the bathroom, and this big old Perry County guy said, where you going? I said, I'm going to go to the bathroom. He goes, oh, sit down. I'm like, okay. So I sat down, and I had, I think, 11 in San Antonio. And the same thing, she asked me, I was able to tell her that, and she asked me how much money I had. I knew how much money I had walking in the door because I kind of needed to know that. And I told her, she added $100. She said, if you can go out there and pay that right now, I'll take care of this for that. And you can get your license. And so I went out there and, I guess she knows everybody has $100 somewhere. Yeah. Because I credit card, whatever, I dug it all up and I got it done. And went and got my license and still didn't think I was good enough for all that. Even though I dealt with all this mental health stuff, there's still that little thing inside of you that kind of ticks occasionally. And you were there when I got my license. And I had that paper that said I had a license. I signed it and you're like, oh, you got your license? I said, no, I don't know yet. She said, you got it? I said, I don't know yet. It wasn't until I got the actual hard copy that I internalized, okay, yeah, I got they gave me a license.
I know, so, I was shocked too.
All my grandkids couldn't understand. They never knew. I never had a license their entire lives, Anyway, so yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, you gotta watch me around. I told you, but yeah.
Well, I do want to get onto the subject of what you're doing now.
So I don't like to talk about what I'm doing now.
Why?
Because I don't want.
Oh, because it's the unknown path.
No, it's because I don't want to seem like I'm bragging about my accomplishments, although they are examples.
I need you. I want you.
Although they are examples of what recovery is, and that's another one of those character defects that we have.
Yes.
Right? It's hard. I feel like I'm on this razor's edge of ego and pride. Where is pride too much? Where is ego too much? And so I don't really like to talk about me very much, but I do. So what's happening with me now? I still currently work at a place that I love. I'm still able to work with people and give them strength and hope. And I can't save anybody or fix anybody, period. I can't do that. All I really do is just point. I just point, and I give them a little bit of hope that they can do it too, and I just point, encourage them, and they go do it. It's not me, it's them.
Right.
All the way. But what I'm doing now, I got invited to be a part of a board of a nonprofit, and so I decided to join this board. And they had a room to the side they were using. Well, I started a group called Opportunity Recovery Group years back, before COVID. COVID happened, and they stopped me, and after COVID, I couldn't start it back up, so I decided that I was going to use this little room to have my group, and I was happy with that. And I was talking to my sister, one of my sisters, and me and her talked about having a nonprofit. And she said, well, you want to make that a nonprofit? It never even occurred to me, right? I'm like, well, yeah, sure. I'm a nonchalantly agreeing and going along. And by the time the phone conversation was over, she said, she said, I bought you that domain name, so now you own the domain for that. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's neat. And she asked me if I minded if she kind of took the lead role because she has more knowledge. You don't mind doing it. You got the knowledge, I got the passion. Let's do this thing. And so fast forward, we are now a 501c3 Opportunity Recovery Group is. I got a letter yesterday from the IRS that said that now people that don't approved, I guess, to be non-tax exempt. So now people that donate to the Opportunity Recovery Group can deduct that from their taxes.
And that's
I think
awesome.
I think that's the final piece of all of it there, sort of in a way. And so yes, I have that. And I'm now vice chairman of the board of a recovery place. And of course this, the podcast. I've thought about a podcast for a while. I always knew I was going to name it Todd's Pod. But the whole reason for this podcast, it's not about me. That's why I'm here this side of the table today, because everybody's like, well, it is about you. I know it's not. It's about the people that I interview. But they're like, well, you've got to tell your story. So that's kind of why I'm here now doing this, so that that can be out there. But my goal is to spread the knowledge that recovery can happen for anybody, okay? And everybody has a different path. And it's not my place to judge what your path is. I can't do that because it's not for me to do, right? I don't know. I've had people, some people have picked some weird ways to get sober and it worked for them. That's great. That's their path, right? It's not my job to judge that path. It's my job to walk with them in that path. It's my job to walk alongside them and help them. If you can picture, some people will tell you that God is bad, religion is bad, and everything. Well, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. And in my opinion, God is that higher power, but it can be anything you choose it to be, right? And then you have this highway, right? One lane's this, and one lane's that, and one lane is recovery, and one lane is spirituality, and they go together. You can't have one without the other, I believe. And so my whole thing is to let people know and to let people struggle and say, hey, there is hope. Because I was one of those that didn't think I would ever be sober. And thanks to many, many people that are, yes, they're still in my life, that have encouraged me along the way. So, yeah, great things are happening in my life today. Don't know what that looks like down the road.
What do you want it to look like down the road?
So, okay, as I said, it started out just a little group, but now I have this vision, I guess lofty goal. I never thought I'd ever have a nonprofit. Never thought I'd ever this, right? So my goal and my thought is believe that there is not enough detox in the world, in the country, major cities. If you want to detox from a drug or alcohol, whatever it may be, we have one place in San Antonio, and it's limited on its bed space. Beyond that, you have to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And if you tell the hospital I need to detox, they're going to send you back out on the street and tell you we don't do that, we can't do that, which whatever, they're medical, whatever stuff. You have to tell them you're going to commit suicide. And then they can kind of help you, but they won't detox you, they'll help you with that, but they have to detox you at the same time. So there's your only medical detox that you can walk into. And you put the stigma on people that, okay, well, I'm suicidal. It really wasn't. I just had to say that to get the help that I needed. So I envision a detox where people can just come in. No questions asked. I don't, whatever, and we will help you detox, which is huge because it requires a lot. Licensing, medical people, locations, things like that. But I can see this at some point. And what I would like to do, ultimately, today is have this detox and then take people straight from detox into treatment in that same complex. Never leave the complex. And as they go through their treatment, have sober living in the same complex. So they can go straight from here to treatment to sober living. Probably a 2-year process. But I think that that's something that every city should do. They should have it because they talk about all the opiate deaths, all the overdoses. People die of alcoholism and drug addiction every day at very large numbers.
Yes.
Suicide, I think a large number of suicides are going to be addiction type, something led them to that. So not only the detox and the treatment for substance use, but you have to have mental health in there too. If you don't do them together, it's not going to be very successful. So that's the deal. There's got to be a place. There's got to be a place people can just walk up to and say, I need help. And then we figure out what you need and we help you, period. We don't make you go back out on the street. We find a way to help you. Problem with that is once I build it, it'll be full, and we'll need more.
And you need another one.
And we'll need more, and more. And there's never enough. at some point, I guess there'll be that teetering point where there will be enough. And that'll be a glorious day in the world, man, when there's enough beds or enough places people can go. Because as we get better, as we recover, like myself, and like many, many other people that I know that I've watched go through this process, right? We can pass that on to others. There's going to come a day in this country, I believe, that addiction is not, yes, it's always going to be there. Never ever going to get away, get completely gone. But I believe that we can build the resources. We can build the ability to help anybody that needs help and not be putting them back on the street, because that's when you have your death.
Yes.
And I hate when people leave, and I pray that, oh God, let me see them again, because I don't want to hear it. As a matter of fact, the first time I knew of somebody that I knew that died in their addiction, it was hard on me.
I remember it hitting really hard.
I had a very good friend that I asked him, what do you do? He said, not a lot. I have to understand. And I said, how many people have died since you've been doing this? He looked at me and he said, I don't know. And I was so offended. I was like, how can you not go? I didn't really say it. I'm thinking in my mind, this guy's freaking ridiculous. Here he is, he's this man I'm looking up to, and he doesn't even know. And he stopped me and said, Todd, he said, listen, there's going to come a time you're not going to know either. And I just like, oh, no, I'll always know. I'll know every name. I'll know the number, right? I can't tell you how many. I lost track. And I never thought that would happen. So this thing is real. People die every day. We have to come together as a country, as a world, and find solutions. And I believe the solution is in the services that we can give.
Yes.
Because the more people we get on this side of sobriety, the more people we can help get on this side of sobriety, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I've had people that I've interviewed that have gone to prison, and they remember my interview, they get out of prison, they come see me, because I tell them, if you go back where you were, you go back where you were. And I don't tell them you go back where you are, you're going to get higher. I just tell them you go back where you are, you're going to go back where you were. Period.
Yes.
They understand what I mean. They know what I mean, and they know it's true. Had I got out of jail and not done with that barbecue that day, I'd be dead, right? So we got to spread the knowledge, we got to spread the word, and we got to find a way. And I think that I'm not going to stop until I find a way. That's what you talk about, me being out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Once I put something on my mind, people that know me will tell you, I don't listen to no. I don't. You may tell me no today, but if I come at you this way and you tell me no, then tomorrow I'm going to come at you this way. Then I'm going to come at you that way. I'm going to find out why you said no.
Right.
And what's the solution to it? It's not a matter of do this. I have to try to find a solution. And my current manager has a hard time with that sometimes, because I'm very, very, I try to be as flexible as I can. And so I do have difficulty there about the no's, right? And I'm trying to be better about understanding that there are ways that aren't just my direction. And I try to understand that I have to change. Everything changes all the time, and so I have to continue to change. And she's very helpful along those lines to help me to be a better me. But that doesn't mean I have to accept no. It just means I have to find out what I got to do. Simple as that. And that's what I do. And everybody that knows me knows that.
Yeah. We sure do.
Yeah. Anything else?
Uh,
Because we're almost out of time.
I mean, I just really want to say how proud I am of you. It was a long time waiting, and I'm proud.
Thank you.
Used to, it was, my kids asked, where's Papa? I don't know. We'll go see him when we go see him, And now it's, you want to go over to Papa's? You want to go spend the weekend with Papa?
It's amazing.
It's just, you've come a long way. And I'm proud of you, and I'm grateful. Because I am 38 years old, I am way past 18, and every day I still need you. And every day, a lot of people still need you.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed myself. You didn't cry as much as I thought you would. I didn't cry as much as I thought I would. Well, anyway, I thank you all for watching the podcast this week. And this episode was actually brought to you by Wellness Health Careers. They do career staffing and health in the healthcare field. Their website is wellnesshealthcareers.com. So thank them for allowing me to be able to continue to do this. Thank you. Have a great day.